So in this video, we're going to be showing you how to create our Mega Bling numbers. Now you can buy our Mega Bling numbers already done for you, or you can use EasyStone to create your own set of Mega Bling numbers. But really what we want to do here, more than just show you how to create the Mega Bling numbers, is to really give you a basic education on Rhinestone software. Because if you watch this video and get the understanding, you might wind up saving yourself a lot of money. Now, when I first started doing rhinestones, the very first product I ever purchased was the Funtime software, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a basic rhinestone software. It's $50, so it was a minimal investment initially, and it's a kind of scaled down version of WinPC Sign. So WinPC Sign 2010 had some rhinestone functionality in it, and what I didn't know at the time, but I knew that Funtime was kind of similar to WinPC Sign in that it had all the same rhinestone features, but you couldn't cut to your vinyl cutter in Funtime, which wasn't an issue because I already had cutting software. So I wound up buying the full version of WinPC Sign 2010, thinking that it had more rhinestone functions, and it didn't. It had the same set of rhinestone functions, but it did have other functions that I really didn't need from a sign cutting software perspective. So then my next process was to look at a CorelDraw macro. I saw basically two macros on the market, which was R-stones and drawstones. And both of them are, for the money, a good macro. A good option, especially if you're familiar with CorelDraw. My problem with R-stones and drawstones was they didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do. So at this point, I've purchased R-stones, I purchased drawstones, I purchased Funtime, I purchased WinPC Sign 2010, and now I have over $500 worth of rhinestone software, and I actually don't use any of it. And if you are on the forums, you'll see that a lot of people are out there buying software. And actually, I bought another rhinestone software that was $400, but it also had an embroidery software with it. And because I was familiar with the software from the embroidery side, I went ahead and upgraded the existing software I already had. And with that upgrade came the rhinestone functions. So really, all in all, I have about $900 worth of rhinestone software that I don't use. And the reason I don't use it is because everything those programs do, I can do right here inside CorelDraw. And then, so we created the EasyStone macro to pick up on some of the functions that didn't exist in some of these other macros. But let's take a look at a rhinestone software. Now, this isn't in any way a put down to any program that's out there. This is just to educate you on how these programs work and how similar all these programs really are from a rhinestone perspective. Now, this is a demo of Ooing, which you can download at synergy17.com, and you can try it out for yourself. And what's really interesting about Ooing, and I didn't know it when I was first introduced to it, is this software is actually kind of the kingpin of rhinestone software from this particular manufacturer, CadLink. So there's Bling It. I think there's actually a couple of versions of Bling It, and Ooing, and they're all kind of the same base software. Ooing has more features than some of the other than Bling It does. So if you have Bling It, to turn around and buy Ooing, you're kind of double buying because the features are very similar. So when I took a look at Ooing, and honestly I haven't spent much time with Ooing because I can do everything I need to do in CorelDraw, so I don't really spend much time here in Ooing. But when I took a look at Ooing, the first thing that caught my eye was like, wow, that interface looks awful familiar. And what was really interesting is the K&K Studio software that I use with my vinyl cutter is the same manufacturer that makes Ooing. So all these icons were all the same. The way the software cuts to the cutter, that all worked the same. The only thing that was really different was the Rhinestone function. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I had probably 2/3 of the software. The only piece that I'm missing in my cutting software that came with my vinyl cutter are the Rhinestone features. So with that said, what I wanted to show you was, first of all, in Ooing, how easy it is to create the basic Rhinestone design for the Mega Bling numbers. So if you look at this, I imported these. These are 5.5 inches tall because we're going to do an outline as well, and I want 6-inch numbers. So we have our numbers here. I imported this as an EPS file. If I click on the little heart shape, that is our Rhinestone fill. And you can see we have outline properties or fill properties. We can do either way, but we're going to focus on fill properties here. So in between, we're going to do 1.4 in between stones. We're going to choose the grid option. So these are the different fill options: line, spiral, center spiral, random, center, grid, stagger grid, and rhinestone font. For us, we're going to try the grid. Well, I'll tell you what, let's try rhinestone font. I don't even know what we'll get. I never tried it, but because we're kind of doing a font. Select elements. We're going to do an SS10. We choose add. That adds to the element list. We click OK. And we get 2 little dots. I'm not really sure. Like I said, honestly, I'm not a wizard at Ooing, so I'm not really sure what that rhinestone font function is. But let's try what I know works, and that is grid. So we'll come in here, select elements. We'll add SS10, and just that quick, we get our grid of stones. Now, it did a decent job. If you look here right along the angle of this, did a decent job on our letter O. What's interesting, though, is over here on our number 1, which also has an angle, it didn't do as great a job. See, this was a sharper angle than this, and you can see this one, it didn't do as great a job. So we'd have some editing to do along that edge. Now, conversely, let's take a look at CorelDraw. And we have a magic button too for doing grid fills. So does Rstones, so does Drawstones. If you did a grid fill on any of our macros, compare that to the Ooing demo, it's about the same. But what we want to show you is a more manual process, so you get an understanding of what's happening behind the scenes. So we're going to get rid of our fill. We're going to add an outline, and we're going to draw a line. I'm just going to draw a straight line here inside CorelDraw. Nothing fancy, right? Over here in our stone fill tab, we're going to do 50, and the offset of this line is determined by the size of the stone and the spacing between the stones. So we're going to go ahead and click, and you can see we get 50 lines now. Now with that, we're going to take all of our lines, less our number 1, and we're going to start from a line right to the bottom edge of our number 1. Okay? Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trim away all the excess lines away from our number 1. So we're going to select that, come over here to the Editing tab, Mark Object, and we're going to zoom out, and we're going to select all of our lines, less the number 1, and we're going to choose Trim. Now we didn't actually see anything happen, but it did. If I come in here and start selecting these lines, you can see around the number 1, all those lines got trimmed away. So now these lines weren't touching the number 1, and nor were these at the top. Okay? So that's essentially what Ooing is doing. It's calculating the size of our number 1. It's determining how many rows of stones we can have, and then it's applying those stones. Now we're going to take our number 1 and we're going to come over to our stone fill tab. We have this island fill function, which is kind of a contour function. So if I do 1 contour, and we're going to choose 8 millimeters, and we hold down the shift key, then it'll contour to the outside. Otherwise it would contour to the inside. So holding the shift key down and hit island fill will contour to the outside. And then we get this offset. So we'll get rid of our original number 1 now. So now you can see we just have a series of lines, and we have our offset. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just edit. See the spacing here is a little bit more than it is here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come into our shape tool here, and we're going to edit this outline a little bit. So we'll select those 2 nodes, hold our shift key down, select those 2 nodes, and just pull this down a little bit so that the spacing here is roughly the same as it is here. When we're happy with it. Okay, that's pretty good. Probably do a little bit same thing here. We're going to adjust our spacing a little bit. That's probably pretty good, the spacing here. Maybe a little bit more up. Something like that. Same thing up the top. We're just going to pull it down just a pinch. Okay, now this angle we are going to adjust a little bit. So we can go ahead and adjust it out. And I think we'll just leave it just like that. Okay, so that's more or less what we want to do. Now, I'm going to switch my color to crystal, and I'm going to select all of those lines that we created and choose our stone tab and choose add stones. And then we're going to choose our outline, and notice that we have detect corner selected. So when we choose the add stones for the outline, every corner is going to have a stone perfectly. Okay, at every corner. Come up to the top here, you can see every corner. Now this right here, this one, if we look right here, this section, let's go to wireframe mode here. You can see there's not a stone right there at that corner, and we really want one there. So when you have a situation like that, let's go ahead and clear that section out. And what we can do here is grab that node, come to the editing tab, and choose break at nodes. Now we have 2 separate lines. So when I click add stones now, you see there's a stone right there at that corner. Now let's go back to enhance mode here, and let's turn off the outline for all these stones. Now you can see what a great job right here at this corner. Remember over in Ooing, it was a little bit staggered at this, but you can see now this follows the line just perfectly, and we have a perfect number 1 for our Mega Bling, and we have our outline as well. So that is a really cool feature. Now let's see if that applies to a different number. We're going to do basically the same exact process. So what we're going to do is, first thing, remember, we draw a line. And again, we're doing this manually so you can understand the process. Now we're going to move that line up right to the bottom edge of our number 0. Come to the stone fill tab, we'll choose 50, we'll hit the up arrow. There it is. We're going to come into our number O, and we're no fill, but we'll do an orange outline so we can see it. And then we're going to come over to our editing tab and choose mark trim object. We're going to select our lines, less our number 0, and choose trim. And we don't really see anything happen, but trust me, it did. So we'll go ahead and start deleting certain areas that we don't need right down the middle here. See, we got rid of that. And then over here, we'll get rid of this, get rid of this, we can get rid of these, and get rid of these, and all the lines that it didn't trim, and even this one right here. There we go. And then what we can do is we do that offset. Remember we did that offset back over here. We did 8 millimeters, so we'll do 1 to the outside. Okay, and then of course obviously we have an inside portion too. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of our original number. So we'll get rid of that. And we're left with just all these lines. And we'll go ahead and switch back over to crystal. Select all of our lines and add stones. Perfect. And now we'll do these. Remember, we have that detect corner option selected. So when I come over here to light cyan, and we'll choose add stones, and what we should see, perfect corners. Now you can see this corner, is not perfect. This corner is not perfect. Let's look at the bottom. The bottom, not perfect. If we go to the wireframe mode here, we can see this better. Right here, we're not seeing those particular corners picked up. Right here, this is dead center, but not down here. Now, there's a reason for that. So let's go back to enhance mode. Let's go ahead and let's clear those stones away so we can see what's really happening here. So on this outline, what's happening here, on our editing tab, we can specify an angle. And it's saying that any angle between 25 degrees and 135 degrees, break that corner. So now we can increase this. Let's increase this to say 165. So if I select these two objects again, and this time we have that detect corners checked, when I hit add stones, you're going to see something different. See now, right there at the corner, go to wireframe mode here, spot on, right there at the corner, because we increased that angle. Okay, so we'll go back to enhance mode here. Let's pull down a guideline, and you can see that right here at the top, this line didn't quite line up, and that's just because of how these numbers offset one another. But we could have fixed that before we did it. You can see that the spacing here and here is a little bit more at the top. So we probably should have edited that before we went ahead and did it. But you get the idea. The big thing is the corners here are perfect, and we really have a nice looking number 0 there for our Mega Bling numbers, and we just pull that over. And now what we can do, if we go back to wireframe mode, we can see this better. I can select this line. We'll go ahead and clear out these stones. So let's just go ahead and clear these out, because we might as well do it right. If we're going to take the time to do it, always do it right rather than just guess. So we'll clear out all these stones here. And then what we can do is just pull down a guideline. And so at the bottom, you can see that actually lined up really good. And if we look at the spacing visually, you can see that that is actually pretty decent. Where things got a little bit wonky was the top right here. So that's easy enough to fix. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go to the View menu, and we're going to choose Snap to Guidelines. I'm going to switch over to my Shape tool, and I'm going to click this line right here that we're having trouble with. I'm going to double click and drag that node. See where it says intersection? Double click anywhere. Click and drag that node to the intersection. And what that allows me to do then is I can just delete that end node back to that node that I just placed, and then I go ahead and take this line and move it over here, grab my Shape tool, and pull this one right over here. So now, after I made that small edit, I can come back in and choose Add Stones all the way around. See, some of those I wouldn't actually had to have taken the stones away, but we just took the stones away out of everything just to simplify the process. Get rid of this bottom guideline. And there we have it. So now we have a perfect Mega Bling number 10. Looks really good, and honestly, I know it seems like it was a lot of work, but really, once you get right down to it, it's really not that bad at all. So that just gives you a little bit of insight of how we go through the process of creating our Mega Bling numbers. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you get a better understanding of how these different Rhinestone programs work, and how very similar they are, and the way they calculate the number of stones and so forth. So you're not out spending a lot of money on this Rhinestone program and that Rhinestone program when they all kind of do the very same thing. So thanks for watching.